Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Living Rooms. Welcome back to the Living Rooms live stream pop-up art studio this Wednesday. Thank you for being here. Okay, I'll let everyone settle in and join as I prep a few more materials for today. How's everybody doing? Now, as you join in, if you could just send me a quick hello, a little shout out, a little roll call so I know that everybody can hear me and that we're doing this thing. Gonna have a big sip of coffee here. Can everybody hear me? Well, welcome, welcome, welcome to everyone who's settling in, who's going to be joining us. Same rules as always. We want this to be a safe, creative space for everyone. Law of 2 feet applies. So this is an hour and a half of art making time and chatting and connecting. But you take care of you. If you need to take breaks, if you can only dip in and out, if you have to leave early, if you come halfway through, that's all right. You know, this is for you. We're here for you to create with you. Okay? So I hope everyone is doing well. Oh, Austin. Hello, Austin. Thank you for saying hi. Oh, it's so good. You can hear me? Everything's good? Excellent. Okay. Now, for those of you who do not live in Oshawa, well, I hope it's nice and sunny and warm where you are, because right now, as I look outside my window, it's snowing. It is snowing, and I'm not quite sure what to make of that. It's a little chilly here, and we've had a couple of requests throughout the week to do something to bring a little more warmth into our lives. So I thought that for Day's pop-up art studio, we would play with color, whatever that might mean to you. I'm going to be using watercolors and pencil crayons, but you can use whatever materials you have on hand that are colorful, that bring you joy. That could be crayons, that could be pencil crayons. Maybe you have some markers hanging around that you love. Maybe you want to explore working with fabric. Maybe you want to do something completely different and just hang out and do your thing while we chat and just listen to us in the background. That's okay too. This space, this pop-up studio is here for you. I guess I should start by sharing the completed project that I did last week. So those of you who joined us last week, last Wednesday, we were working on collage and just piecing things together, being very gentle, creative, just like using things that we had on hand to create one cohesive image. So I'd collected a lot of different things last week, and I wasn't quite sure how they would come together, but in the end, this is what it looks like. All right, let me see if I can hold this up for you. Let's see. Now, there's a little bit of a delay. So can people see this? I'm hoping. So in the end, all of those pieces came together like this. I haven't figured out what I want to call it yet, but the little crocheted lady making an appearance down there, holding that nautical clock. She's got a mighty big parrot on her shoulder. Don't know what that means. And then those herbs, all the lovely greenery in jars up here at the top, pouring out emeralds down towards the bottom of that cold, cold ocean. And of course, the whale found its way in here too, just there at the bottom. Someone's trying to catch that whale in a jar. Don't know what that means either, but I'm going to spend a little more time with it to figure it out and enjoy it. If you have completed pictures of your collages or anything that you made last week that you would like to share, please do. It always gives me such a thrill to see people share their work on Facebook or on Instagram, to see what comes out of these lovely sessions. If nothing does, that's okay too. Austin, what have you been working on these days? Austin is one of our incredibly creative community members. So much skill, so much discipline. For those of you who haven't met Austin or seen his work, it's extraordinary. Now, what I would also like to do today as well is start up with another warm-up. So, for this one, you can use markers, you can use pencils, you can use pencil crayons. I'm going to dig in and choose a couple of crayons, a couple of colors that are speaking to me. They don't have to match, they don't have to mean anything in particular. There we go. I love crayons. Sometimes we forget that they exist as an art medium when you get older. I love them. They're fantastic. And when you have nothing else, almost all of us have somewhere in the place where we live, you can find some box of crayons or a couple of crayons that have been left behind by someone. These are, if you've got nothing else to work with, crayons are a lifesaver. They bring a lot of beautiful color onto the page, enough kind of waxiness that you can manipulate it a little bit if you build up the layers over time. I love them. But to start, we're going to take these crayons and do a little activity that I was taught way back in art therapy school, back at the Toronto Art Therapy Institute. It's a pretty simple exercise. Just one way of getting into your body and kind of syncing up all the different pieces, all the different aspects of yourself. Hey, Suzanne, nice to see you. Thank you for joining us. We're just going to do a little warm-up exercise here. So grab a pencil or pencil crayon, a crayon, a marker, whatever you have, and a piece of paper. I'm using quite a small one because of the camera here, but if you've got larger paper, you can go as big as you like. You can actually, if you have a really big piece of paper, you can, put it on your floor and spread out to do this activity. You can pin it on your wall, whatever feels right to you. Because what we are going to be doing is drawing our breath. Okay? So I'm going to be taking 2 crayons at once. Okay? Remember, there is no perfection allowed here. Same rules apply here as they do over at the LivingRoom studio officially. So we're going to start anywhere you like on the page. Give yourself space. Give yourself permission to draw wherever your breath takes you. I know it sounds really artsy-fartsy, but trust it. Give it a go. And be gentle with yourself, okay? And the idea is that you let the lines of your medium, your crayons in this case, go wherever your breath goes. You might start off a little squirrely, just like I did. Just let it take you wherever it needs to go. Hey, Annie. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Now, I don't know if you folks can see. These colors I chose were kind of faint. So let's see if I can try that again, just with a stronger color so you folks can see it at home. Again, if you had a larger piece of paper and you could smooth it out on the floor or pin it on your wall, you could get not only your breath involved in the process, but you could become a little more physical with it as well. So I don't know if anyone was able to catch the Instagram chat that I had yesterday with Georgia Fullerton from Just Georgia Paint Parties, but we were talking about, well, she had such a great phrase for it, that's what was it? Creativity CrossFit, creative CrossFit training. And the idea that making art, visual art, isn't just about the product you create, it's the process. And the process does involve our bodies. It involves our breath. Hey, Bee, nice to see you too. Yeah, so whatever medium you have on hand, B is eating lunch, so B's using curry sauce. I'm not judging. Whatever works for you. You could actually draw on the plate into the kind of sauce of it. Yeah, that could totally work. Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, being able to draw and become as physical as you want or as you need to, it can be such an excellent way of just aligning that internal self with your external self, your breathing with your mind, just grounding yourself and becoming truly present with whatever mediums you're working with in whatever moment you happen to be having. So I'm famous. I'm famous for holding my breath when I get tense or when I'm distracted. So the pattern often looks a little bit like this. And if you find that your body kind of wants to join in its own kind of physical movement, its own flow, let it, right? So that's something you can do any time of day you want to. I'm hoping that color shows up a little bit more now. Let me hold it up a little bit. Yeah. That's a little bit of what my breath looks like right now. And it can be visually really, really beautiful too if you add in many colors and do it many, many times, layering over top of one another, seeing if there are any patterns. For me, again, it's another example of a kind of active meditation because some of us are really lucky and we're really good at having a quiet moment and breathing and letting our mind find that still point all on its own, just with, focusing inward, that kind of thing. For me, not so good at that. I need something to keep my hands busy. I need something to keep my body engaged, just to keep something moving a little bit. So activities like this, I find pretty helpful. Let me know if you do too. All right. So I'll put that aside for now. And I'll just check in with everyone again to see how folks are doing out there with this lovely, lovely, chilly, snowy day we seem to be having. I know it's spring. I know, at least for us in Oshawa, I know folks can sometimes join us from outside of Oshawa. Last week, I think we had someone checking in from Finland. We had folks watching from New York. The weather might be very different there. It might be colder. It might be warmer. But here in Canada, this is when we all begin to get a little bit, or at least in Durham region, we begin to get a little bit stir crazy at the best of times. The weather is just beginning to warm up, but then every once in a while we're surprised by a snowstorm or just a stretch of really gray, cold, drizzly days. So again, a few of you suggested that we warm things up a little bit and maybe do something to brighten things up a little bit. So I think there's so many great examples of this out there, but I thought we'll start by playing with color. And I've been thinking about color a lot lately because one of my amazing placement students at the LivingRoom, Gilbert, does this great exercise every day. It's been taking place about 7 p.m. every night on Facebook. And I think he might be changing the time, mixing it up a little bit, and doing it at 5 p.m. But it's a simple activity where he invites everyone to share the color of their day. So this is an example of two of the pieces that I was working on for that. Basically, it's something that allows you to sit down and just take a really simple shape, fill it with color, right? We're not asking you to do anything realistic or representational. This should be an activity that is very gentle and forgiving and allows you to just let things out, let go of them, help process you wherever you're at in your day. So these are two examples of what I did. Just tracing the bottom of a coffee mug, right? Just a simple circle, and then filling it in with color. So this was one day. I think I described that day as fizzy, kind of energized, a little bit tired, but still, excited, full of possibility and potential. And this day, this was yesterday, this was a little bit more spiky, but again, spiky in kind of a positive way, kind of that way of just like the flower ready to explode into bloom, or the sun sending out heat and that like sort of radiant fieriness. For me, it's just two ways of looking at what my day was like without having to use words, without having to even understand it that much. When I'm doing it, when I'm creating it, I'm certainly not thinking about why I'm creating it the way I'm creating it. I'm just letting it emerge. And then at the end, when I look at it, I'm kind of like, I like it. It becomes its own beautiful little work of art. Hello, cat hair. But without me having to think too much or plan too much about it or force anything, right? Now, I'm going to be using some watercolors today. I feel really, one of the things I love about watercolor is that watercolor somehow turns off my inner critic. I think because when you're working with watercolor, you don't have as much control as you might in other mediums, maybe. Sometimes you have, or at least I do, I have these fantastic mistakes, things that happen unexpectedly when there's too much water or too much color, or the colors blend in a really weird way that I wasn't expecting. And it's part of my job as a human being and my humaning endeavors to just let it be and see where it wants to take me. And I know there's other folks out there too that appreciate watercolor for the same reason. Again, I'm going to, like, right up front, I am not an art teacher. I am certainly not the kind of artist who sets up watercolors outside and paints landscapes or portraits or anything like that. For me, it's all about playing with color. But there are a lot of really cool techniques and just simple things that I use that anyone can try with their watercolors. If you do want to paint a landscape or a portrait or still life, what have you, feel free to use them. I am just going to be using shape and color today. I hope you're okay with that. All right. So again, staring at the white page. Thinking about what shape I want to use. Now, as an added note, I'm using a fairly inexpensive watercolor paper here. I happen to have some on hand after we closed the studio. Ideally, you would like to work with a thicker kind of paper when you're working with watercolor or any kind of medium with a heavy moisture content. It just holds the paint a little bit better. Doesn't get as warped or wobbly as like a normal sheet of bond paper might. If you don't have watercolor paper, you could try a mixed media paper. But you know what? You could try, you really like, if you don't mind a bit of warping or bubbling, you could try anything. I think sometimes I've worked on cardboard before as well. Again, the color of the board affects the way the paint looks as it's being laid down. But as long as you welcome that and embrace it and work with it, no problem. If you don't have watercolors at home, you can experiment with other things too. So You can use water-based markers and then add a little bit of water on a brush to the markers once they're laid down to soften it and to begin essentially diluting the marker that's there to help it bleed. If you don't have water-based markers, you could try working with things like tea or coffee or Kool-Aid. There are lots of artists out there who've gotten really, really cool results about working with things that they just happen to have in their house. For me, I think I'm never without a watercolor palette on me. I don't know what that says about me, but yeah. And again, whether it's, it can be a dollar store palette or a fancy one you got at the art store, doesn't matter. I've worked with all different kinds of watercolor palettes, and you can still get beautiful, beautiful, beautiful colors out of them, especially when it comes to working in an abstract way. So I'm talking a whole lot here. Does anyone else have any questions so far? Is there anything that folks would like to share with me about how their week has been so far? And we can talk and chat as we go. So just to start, there's two basic techniques that I use with watercolor. And again, using the word technique is a little bit, it's a little bit fancy. Really, it's just two simple approaches. You can wet the brush and apply the brush to the paint. Let's see. Let's use that color. And you're using the water to activate or wet that little pot of dried paint that was there. And then you apply that to your paper, right? And you tend to have a little more, I suppose, a little more control over the color that way, right? Now, if you do that, you can also use just a wet brush to soften the edge or to move the paint around. So this is kind of what I was referring to, like if you wanted to try working with water-based markers, it'll have a similar kind of result. Now, the way I tend to work more often than not is by dipping the brush in water and painting the page with some water. And then dipping the brush into the paint and applying the paint onto a wet surface. And there are probably like art names for these techniques out there, and I think I might know them, but all of them happen to have escaped my head right now. So if you know what these two techniques are called, shout it out and we can share it with folks. Now, what I love about working in this way is that wherever I've put the water, it acts as a natural kind of barrier between the rest of the page. So generally speaking, the paint goes no further than where I've spread the water or where I've allowed the water to go, which is another cool thing to do if you want to add more water and kind of twist it or turn it around to let it pool and pour in different directions. And you see how the colors blend with one another, and they do the work for you a lot of the time. Now, of course, you can go in and add a harder line along that edge where the water was, if you like. Now, those of you who've seen me working this way at the studio or out in the community, I kind of, I just call it watercolor doodling because, oh wow. I keep forgetting to scroll down when I'm doing these, guys, so forgive me if I'm not seeing the comments. Oh, okay, so there's a lot of lovely weather stuff happening and a lot of, oh, that's good. I'm glad it's not snowing everywhere. That is a good thing. But yes, the watercolor doodling is just something that makes me feel really happy. It's something that helps relax me. Um, and I don't have to think about it that much. But maybe that's because I've gotten to a point where I've made it easier for myself. I've given myself permission not to think about it too much. Now let's see. So folks out there are also working with, I know Suzanne mentioned alcohol inks. If you've got some alcohol inks at home, ooh, you can have a lot of fun with those. They work, I wouldn't say in a similar way, but they have this fantastic, vibrant color and the ability to blend and move with one another on the page or on the surface you're working with to create these gorgeous, gorgeous colored effects. Many artists are also really have developed these beautiful techniques about incorporating the accidental art that occurs from simply blending and mixing the colors and adding them together, highlighting the images that might be within the abstract, so kind of spontaneous painting that can emerge from just the designs, the way the colors danced with one another on the surface. Chalk pastels sometimes. They don't move on their own as much, but the way they blend, the kind of colors they create, the lines and the shapes that emerge from them. I always like leaving a little bit of room for the accidents, the mistakes that tell their own story. I think that's the balance. I really do, between your artist self, the person who, the brain, the heart that wants the thing so badly, that wants it to look or be something so badly, and then the artistry comes in by trusting the process, trusting the materials, and letting the materials speak for themselves as well. I think that, for me personally, is where the best art emerges. The most meaningful stuff, the stuff that tends to resonate with me, anyways, comes from a balance of those two things. Otherwise, you just get a computer to do it. And nothing wrong with that either, right? Nothing wrong with that either. But it's the human story that I'm interested in more often than not. Now, this also opens up a really interesting conversation about color and the relationship we have with color. I'd be interested to know how each one of us relates to color in our lives. Because it's informed and like shaped by so many things culturally, it's shaped by moods, by the experiences we have, who we're surrounded by. Ah, Tiffany, Sandra, hello, hello. Christine, hi. As I was mentioning about spontaneous painting, if you're interested, Christine Weatherly has a really fantastic tutorial over on the LivingRoom's YouTube page about spontaneous painting, which touches upon all the things that I was just talking about. Letting something that just looks like colors spilling out onto a page, suddenly things begin to emerge from it, shapes, forms, and it becomes an extraordinary work of art that tells its very own story. Check that out if you're interested in learning more about spontaneous painting. So Suzanne had another great top tip, although I haven't tried it, so I'd be interested to see what the quality is like. But if folks don't have alcohol ink, or sometimes it's actually a little bit pricey at the art stores to find it, or if you order it on Amazon, it can be a little bit expensive, especially if you're just looking to experiment with it. Suzanne says that you can make your own alcohol ink by repurposing or recycling the ink out of used up markers. I think there are like a couple of good tutorials out there on YouTube about how to extract the ink from the markers. So if anybody has tried that before, let me know how it works. I would love to see the results of that. Oh, where do you get chalk pastels? So Lisa, I'm just going to have a little coffee break while I chat about this. Chalk pastels are another one of those, it's a simple kind of well-known art supply, but you don't often find it, at the local dollar store, for example, unfortunately. You tend to find them in art supply stores, I know you can order them online as well. You want to make sure, start out with a simple, like affordable chalk pastel kit. You don't need to go all out, especially if you're just learning how to work with them. You can also get chalk pastel pencils. So the chalk pastels I usually have, coffee sip, hold on. The chalk pastels we have at the studio and that I'm most used to working with are actually like blocks of chalk, similar to blackboard chalk, just a lot more pigment, a lot more color and vibrancy that comes out of using them. And they blend a lot easier than what you'd use on the sidewalk or a blackboard. Now, some people don't like getting their hands messy, and so you could wear a pair of gloves if you don't like that sensation. You can also get, again, at an art store or ordering online, you can get chalk pastels that are pencils. So it just gives you a little bit more control when you're drawing or creating with them. Oh, hello, Laura and Emily. Hello. The chalk pastel pencils can be really fun to work with, especially if you like doing detail work. A lot of portraiture is done with chalk pastels, and it creates this really interesting effect, especially if you work on a surface that isn't that is a colored surface. So you get this contrast that is really lovely. I don't know. You can look it up and see, and we'll see if we can find some resources for you too, Lisa. Yeah. Bridget, B's used the chalk pastel pencils before. They're pretty cool. They're pretty cool. All right. So we have, again, just getting back. I was just getting caught up in chatting to people because I just enjoy connecting with you folks so much. I wasn't sure what I was going to create with you today. I wanted to let everyone know, remind everyone about Gilbert's The Colors of My Day project, which I've been doing at home. I've been sharing some of them online with folks on the Facebook page. But I can't tell you how relaxing I found to do it. Just filling a small circle with color every day, usually near the end of every day, just to kind of reflect what things have been like, what my experience has been. Sometimes you don't have words for it. It's just it's what it is, right? And I find without the structure that we used to have, the days can feel a little loosey-goosey, a little nebulous. They just sort of one blends into the other. And there's something about engaging in that simple art activity. And anyone out there who does art journaling or journaling, any kind of creative activity to punctuate their day, to start their day or end their day, you know what I'm talking about. It just gives you an opportunity to bookend things a little bit, to mark them. And I can look back now over the last week and see this one little thing that I did every day that kind of maps out, I wouldn't call it the progress of my week, but the experience of my week in a really simple way. And I know that each one of us were doing whatever we can, right, to make meaning of this time, to take care of ourselves, to take care of our loved ones, to try not to let the strangeness of the times overwhelm us. This is one way that I find really helpful to make meaning of things. And to let me know, to remind me that this time has been useful, that this time matters somehow. It might be different than how we normally live, but this still matters. This is still living, and we should be able to enjoy it, right? As much as we can. As much as we can. It's important to find those moments and hold on to them. So yes, I ramble. Let's see. Ah, hello, Anthony Granny.
Zoom out a bit on your camera.
Oh, I'm going to zoom out on my camera. Is that because my face is getting cut off?
Yeah, we're losing your face a little bit.
All right. Thank you. Technical advisor, thank you very much. It's because I lean in so much, don't I? That one's for Emily. Again, shout out to my excellent technical support here. Couldn't do it without him. So often with the way I do watercolors, my watercolor doodling, I just go. I have no plan. I have no idea what's going to emerge. I just like seeing the color appear on the page. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't often work in rectangulars and like edges like this, so this is interesting for me. I'm glad my rambling doesn't turn people away. So Christine, another thing that people have been doing, I know I've been doing it, but Christine just reminded me too of the online library app. So for those of us who like reading as a self-care tool as well, I knew this before, but boy, libraries are amazing. They are amazing. And I know that a lot of the librarians in Durham region are making themselves available to talk with people and help connect people who maybe haven't been to the library for a long time, or perhaps you don't know where your library card is. Call them, connect with them. It's always worth asking because they have so many amazing services, not only books, but you can stream movies. You can, there's all sorts of online classes available as well through the library, but also through other platforms that they provide access to. Not that you have to use this time to, I don't know. I think there's a danger with this time as well. Oh, well, thank you. My rambling. Oh, I'm getting compliments about my rambling. That's so nice. I can't wait until I can hear everyone else ramble. I think one of the things I'm looking forward to when I get back into the studio is just listening and seeing everyone. Maybe I won't say anything at all. We'll see. One thing that a colleague of mine highlighted online, just revisiting that, there's a sense of got to use this time, got to come out the other end with some kind of new skill, or like having created something or learned something or being able to do something. And no, no. All we need to do right now, all we ever really need to do is take care of ourselves, okay? You do not need to write, the next best-selling novel. You do not need to write a new play. You do not need to create a series of oil paintings or learn how to speak French or Japanese or German. You do not need to learn or do anything else. You are enough just as you are. And I think it's okay to remind one another of that. Um, it's okay. It's okay. Sometimes it's just enough to take care of ourselves and to just find ways of bringing ourselves back to the present moment where we can appreciate ourselves and just appreciate that we're here and we're okay. Feel our breath, feel our feet on the ground. It's going to be okay. And let's be gentle with ourselves. And let's be gentle with one another. If one of my wonderful friends or one of you does learn a new language or writes a best-selling novel or play or what have you, I will celebrate it and honor it. It'll make me very happy. I just don't want to feel like you have to with this time. Yeah, what are we looking forward to? Eventually we are going to emerge from this. What are you looking forward to? What is something that is really that gives you a sense of hope or a little bubble of joy to think about being able to do again? Listening to people in the studio, working close to them. There's a lot of folks out there who I haven't been able to see or connect with during this time. And all I can do is I just hope they're okay. I know they're being taken care of by good people. Visiting friends, yeah. Excuse me. Ooh. I was just thinking about how I will never take for granted coffee shop. I would I can't wait for the day where I can go and sit down and chat to people over a coffee, something so simple. Hugs, absolutely. Absolutely. Or just the knowledge that you could. There's to not have to second guess yourself when you approach someone. Alice, the studio dog, loves taking us on walks, and we don't live that far from a pet store that she has learned if she goes to the pet store, they give her cookies. So almost every day she tries to take us to the pet store. But since they've been doing things differently, you have to call ahead to order things. She's quite confused and she doesn't understand why we can't go in the pet store. So this one day we were walking by and the woman came, she opened the door to say hello and she waved us down. And, Alice is lovely and she's an essential service in my life, but dog treats for Alice from this pet store aren't necessarily an essential service. So I wouldn't want to trouble them for anything that they, I wouldn't want to put them at risk for that kind of thing. But on this day, it brought so much joy to my heart to have her open up the door and kind of shout out for Alice. And then we came, and it was this kind of ritualistic exchange. There was a table by the door, and she put the treat on the table. She stepped back, we stepped forward, we took the treat off the table, and then gave it to Alice. Alice was overjoyed. Oh my God, that was it was wonderful to see Alice made so happy by that. But it was also really interesting to pay attention to what was going on inside of me in that moment. Um, there was this impulse, this wanting this to go forward and to hug this person that I don't actually hug on a regular basis. So I've got to watch out for that as well. But again, just that simple gesture of remembering, of the ways we can acknowledge one another in our culture, um, they've changed. And I think I like to think that we're going to emerge from this having a greater appreciation for it, maybe a little more kindness, a little more awareness of who's around us, even if we don't hug everyone. Not everyone likes hugs, right? But it does make you think about humans and our drive, our desire to connect with one another too, and to be acknowledged, to be seen and heard by one another. I think it's more important to everyone's health than we realize. Okay, so Tiffany, you're organizing, huh? I've been trying to do a little bit of organizing and arranging of my creative space. I'm working on it. Mm. And that's the other side of it. Christine was just saying that she's you've been wanting to hug, but it's not, yeah, you're right. It's not in your nature really to hug or be hugged by, the general people. I think we're going to probably, I wonder if there will be uh, there'll be I imagine, at least for me, there will be this time where I will have to renegotiate all of my boundaries and to figure out, okay, what do things look like now. And it's fascinating too, because I'm not quite sure when, like, maybe when we come out of this, when it's safe to connect again, it might not be the same connection that we had before, right? These are things that we need to think about, right? What might that look like? Maybe maybe it will be enough just to be in the same space with someone, right? And maybe that won't be such a bad idea. Maybe it will help us from um, being isolated in this way to just hugging every single human being, whether they want it or not. Hmm. So B says, yeah, a friend baked some cookies, delicious cookies. I like that. That's a good friend. And another friend did the drop off at your door, and you nearly cried because they thought of you and how to bring you some joy. That's like those little moments. They make a huge difference, don't they? Yeah, the little things. We'll see. For those of us like Suzanne and Suzanne, you're a hugger. I'm definitely a hugger. I had to teach myself not to hug everyone. We'll see. I mean, I think redefining what intimacy, that kind of intimacy, like intimacy means, isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think we'll really have to listen to one another and check in with one another, which is something perhaps we should do all the time, no matter what. Just to learn about where we're at and what we need. And again, just thinking about human connection in kind of a context of color, like I would think I would be bored if everyone was the same if we all approached one another and connected in the same way. I love that we all have these different approaches to connecting and want different things and need different things on different days. I love in different moments. That makes life interesting. And I think it's a really, we're entering into a really exciting period where we'll have an opportunity to learn about one another all over again. Oh, excellent. Oh, Kim Shilson, so great to see you. Thank you for joining in. Oh, little moment has made your day. Well, that makes my day. And Suzanne says she will share the DIY alcohol ink recipe with everyone later on, so I will post that for folks so you can blend up some of your own colors. Yeah. But redefining what intimacy means, what honest communication means, it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Right? That was something that we always, whether you liked it or not, it was a conversation that you had at the studio, because some people, we all communicate in different ways. There were the people who could communicate verbally to establish and negotiate their terms about how they wanted to be engaged with, what they needed on that day to have their best day. I think other folks who perhaps didn't have the same capacity, maybe who weren't verbal, maybe in slightly altered states or extreme states due to different things that they dance with. It looks entirely, what they need to be affirmed, to feel connected is entirely different. Not one of them is wrong. We just need to take the time to listen, to learn, and check in. Today I want a cup of tea, tomorrow I don't want a cup of tea. Let's see. Yeah. Things we appreciate about what's happening right now. So we've talked a little bit about what we're looking forward to, things we appreciate about right now. I agree with Christine 100%. Seeing how creative people are getting and how, I also enjoy seeing how creative they are getting about connecting and sharing what they're doing with one another. We're seeing people cook who never cook. We're seeing people create who never create. We're seeing people, we're seeing different sides of people in really interesting ways. And technology, wow. Technology has played such a huge part in that. I wonder if it'll be different when we come back, if it will define, we will each of us have our own two separate lives, our who we are online and who we are in person, or if things will blend a little bit more, if we'll feel a little bit more like sharing with one another, sharing what we have in one life in the other aspect of our life. Oh, do I see Emily saying hello there? Hello, Emily. Emily, what are you creating? What are you doing to feel good? Emily is perhaps the youngest person, I will call Emily a founding member of the Living Room Community Art Studio, along with her mom, Laura. The youngest founding member. I think Emily might have been 3 when she started coming to the studio. She even helped us prepare our very first fundraiser. If you ever want to see or to learn how to wear a lampshade properly, Emily is your person. Yep, a whole class. You could teach a whole workshop on that, Emily. So coming back to the conversation about contact and physical contact, that touching or hugging, it can be too intense, Christine. Absolutely. I think, the world we live in popular culture anyways, and many of us are raised, no one, at least in my generation, we were not taught about consent. We were not taught to honor ourselves first. It was pretty much about accommodating everyone else around you. So, the things that might happen at the, one end, the sort of lesser complicated end of that spectrum. It's, you're told to hug people that you don't want to hug. You're told to tell people your name when you don't know who they are or what role they play in your life. For a lot of us, we were taught to give away little bits of ourselves. just because, to be nice to people, to help people feel comfortable. Of course, what we know from being at the studio is it's okay to say no. I think it's important to be able to know that we're doing whatever we can do to help ourselves feel grounded and comfortable and happy. Not necessarily happy in a rainbows and puppy dogs kind of way, but that sense of I'm safe, I'm okay here. That feels good, right? It might make other people feel uncomfortable if they want something from us that we can't give them at that time, but that's okay. They're allowed to feel uncomfortable. And we can be there to remind them that it's okay to feel uncomfortable. That doesn't, because we can't give them what they want, it doesn't mean that we necessarily feel like anything worse towards them, that we're taking it personally in that way. It doesn't change necessarily how we value their presence in our lives or the role that we want or need them to play. That's how we teach one another about what we need and who we are, right? Oh, Kiri. Hey, Kiri. How you doing? Now, you be careful what you say. You say you could sit and listen to me talk for hours. I don't know. Be careful what you wish for. Cut to me here, 2 a.m., just putting color on paper and rambling out into the void. How are you doing, Kiri? I love that folks are connecting here. It's nice to know folks are out there. Better than nice. I feel like I feel very, very grateful for the touchstone that technology has provided, at least for me, and for the living room. I think, let's see. I think there are folks who tune in and watch this after it's completed as well. So if folks can't watch this as it's happening, they'll watch it later on or tomorrow or next week, and if they haven't had a chance to connect with the community for a long time, or perhaps they've been wondering who's out there and how people have been doing, they can track back and they can look and see who's participated. So I think we can't get together at the actual studio, but people knowing that we're all here somehow, that we're part of this community, that we're still connecting, that we're still willing to connect. That's a huge thing. And I appreciate for every person who makes a comment, I realize there might be people out there who don't feel quite ready or brave enough, or perhaps brave enough. What does that mean? Just, you might not be in the mood to make yourself seen in that way or heard in that way, and that's okay. Shout out to all the folks who might just be listening, or, having me on in the background as a kind of rambling white noise, as long as it's helping. And that's all that that's all that this is about. We're here, we're still here. Oh, we have some new watercolor stuff happening. Watercolor pencil crayons. Okay, so I've only used watercolor pencil crayons a couple of times. Laura Brown's got a set going on right now. I've used watercolor crayons or watercolor pastels. I love the the watercolor pastel crayons, but I haven't used the pencil crayon ones. Let me know what that's like, yeah? I mean, I haven't really had time to explore them. Yeah, I hear you, Tiffany. The being stuck inside. Well, it's being stuck inside makes me more, you're more into spending time in your craft space, doing more creative stuff and journaling and things like that. And Christine was talking about that too, that during this time people are really discovering their creativity. Maybe that comes from being a little bit bored. I am a huge believer in I just really love being bored. I miss being bored when I don't have it in my life. I'm any any person who doesn't have time to be bored, I feel for them. It can be such a useful emotion and useful. Well, I don't know. Is it an emotion? Is boredom an emotion, or is it an experience? Kind of finding that it's something, an experience that connects you to that seeking part of yourself. Something that creates, at least for me, space in myself to let things emerge and percolate that maybe wouldn't have the time to make themselves seen or heard in my life. That's when the new ideas pop up. That's when I get excited about projects again if I haven't had time to get excited about projects. Boredom is fantastic. Of course, for me, getting through what comes before boredom is often that quality of restlessness. Don't like that feeling so much, but if I can just sit with that, get through it, at the other end of it is a kind of that beautiful spaciousness that's easy to call boredom. And that's when the beautiful ideas happen. Oh, see, that's perfect. Annie, thank you. Soothing to listen and play with watercolors and know that people are around. That's what I was hoping. That's what I want from these, just to know that we are around. Some time to create together. Even if we're not creating the same things, that's okay. That's okay. And then Tiffany had, what did your art teacher tell you? Your old art teacher told you you have to be bored to do art. Hmm. 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 I think I know what they were trying to say. Why do you think your teacher said that? Why do you, well, why, anyone chime in. Why do you think that it's important? What does boredom give to your life? What does having time to do nothing or having nothing to do in the time you have, what does it give you? To reflect on things perhaps like B was saying, that humans just want to connect with each other and make nice things for themselves and each other. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's life. I think that's life. We want, we we thrive on being in relationship with others, not necessarily the same thing as being in a relationship with someone in the way, you know, you might think of like romantically, but being in relation with one another, knowing that there's someone out there that we can connect to or connect with, right? Having a relationship with ourselves. And the whole idea about making nice things for ourselves and others, that could be anything, couldn't it? That could be art. It could be knitting a scarf. It could be a meal. It could be a moment, right? We make nice moments for one another. And I think that is a life well lived, right? If we can get to that point where we can look back and be present in all the moments that we are creating for one another. And if it's easier to be present in them, that might mean that what we're doing is creating more meaningful, helpful experiences, not necessarily happy, but things that give opportunities for growth and learning and discovery, right? Oh, there's a smile from Kim. Oh, and Annie, yes, time to process the difficult things in a healthy way. Find peace and rest within. Yeah, that relationship with ourselves is so important, right? And I wouldn't underestimate at all the role that color plays within that. Color, shape, line. I think each one of us communicates. We can communicate in so many different ways. And again, as we often, here at the studio, it doesn't matter. The most important thing is that what you're creating makes sense to you. That is the baseline. There will always be opportunities for us to teach one another what those things mean if folks are interested in learning, especially when it comes to art, to creativity, that very, very personal and unique expression of who we are in this moment. Yeah, we can make assumptions based on our own experiences or perhaps the pre-existing relationships we might have with people, for sure. But our assumptions only matter if we check them out. You never know if you don't ask. Boredom as learning about yourself through being busy with purpose. So I find boredom happens for me when I'm doing something that I'm not. I find boredom happens for me when I'm doing something that I'm not engaging with in a meaningful way. Huh. Interesting, B. Interesting. Tell me more. So is that boredom or restlessness? That makes me feel, it reminds me of my own feelings of restlessness when I don't feel quite grounded in something. And there's kind of a noise at the back of my brain or an itchiness somewhere that's kind of trying to tell me that that I'm maybe close, but I'm not exactly where I want to be or where I need to be in that moment. And it's easier for me to get, to drift off, to go astray in those moments. Or alternatively, like a doofus, I'll push through and I'll force myself to continue what I'm doing, grinding my gears, becoming more unhappy as I do it until I finally say, ah, and I take a break anyways. Right? TMI? No? I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah, Kim, you are right. I think that's another piece of the puzzle of humaning that we're learning about right now, just how important the role that nature plays in our lives. And when you only get an opportunity to be out for a short or a small part of the day, I think we're beginning just to recognize how precious that is as a resource, as a time. And just that connecting again, like that beautiful. That's why I love working with clay so much. And shout out to Suzanne Thompson, one of my TADDY teachers, for highlighting this that I never really thought of before. Because when we work with clay, we are literally working with the earth. So of course it's going to feel relaxing. Of course we're going to feel grounded. We're going to learn things about ourselves because we are connecting with part of ourself, our source, the thing that we stand upon, the thing that we rely on, the thing that feeds us and nourishes us. Uh-oh. Never TMI? Well then. Another thing would be careful what you wish for. Let's see. Oh, so Tiffany's offering some clarification. So with what your teacher said, Tiffany's teacher said you have to be bored to make art. So Tiffany says for her, I think with me, being bored makes my creative juices flow. Every art class I had, we were told to sit there, no thinking and no doing for 2 minutes. And then during that 2 minutes, it sounds like you'd get bored and then you'd create something out of that right after. Oh, Tiffany, that sounds like a fantastic. Oh, I like that. I'm going to try that. Yeah, yeah. Almost like your teacher was inviting you to let go. It's almost like a little meditation. Your teacher was saying just let go of everything else. You're not allowed to think about anything else, especially as a student. All the students out there right now, you're pushing through, you're doing your best. And I imagine it can be very, very difficult to just be in this present moment, right? And that's a term a lot of folks use, and it's one of those things. It's like, what the hell do you mean, be in this present moment? Of course I'm in this present moment. Where else could I be? But I think, like if we think about that whole mindfulness thing. Maybe it's about being able to experience things and acknowledge what we're going through as we're going through it, what we're feeling, what we're sensing, what we're smelling, all of those things. To not have to think about the things that are coming up, the things that are in the past. And maybe if we give ourselves just a couple of moments of that before we create art, every time we make art, what a beautiful way to honor the process, to honor that creative process, whatever kind of creative expression you're doing. Oh, and Suzanne, yeah. So in art, boredom makes me explore and try new things, even though I may not like the result in the end. Well, yeah, you may also love it. That's the thing. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I'm not bored, that's for sure. But I think it's been really good for me to have a distraction to be able to talk to as I'm doing this. I'm not getting stuck. I'm not trying to make it into anything. I'm just letting it be whatever it wants to be. That and sometimes that process of creating out of boredom, just trying something just because you can, because you don't have any other ideas, that can also lead to, oh, that beautiful, that extraordinary kind of innovation, that discovery process. Oh, Annie, you've got a feelings wheel. Thank you. So bored is under the sad category. Didn't actually expect that. I didn't expect that either. I gently challenge that feelings wheel. I would like to learn. I want to talk to the creators and find out why boredom is under sad. Unless, for many people, sometimes when you're bored, I imagine perhaps it's easy to confuse that with feeling sad, with feeling a sense of purposelessness. Purposelessness? Maybe not feeling like you have, I don't know. Oh, that's something to explore as well. Yeah, and maybe melancholy too. But melancholy isn't necessarily a bad, again, no emotions are bad. They're just information. Uh, Bye, Kim. Enjoy your session and take care of yourself too. Again, sometimes I have to remember, yep, emotions, just information, not necessarily, not always enjoyable to experience, but just information. Boredom is sadness. Perhaps boredom in that category might have, yeah, that melancholy, maybe a sense of longing for something else. Or perhaps it can be nervous making to not know, to make space for that. I don't know. Jay, welcome, Jay. Yeah. Such a relief to allow yourself to be bored, to live in that moment. I suppose that's part of the piece. If you add mindfulness to that experience of boredom, then maybe that's what gives it meaning. Yeah. Yeah. That's a really great point as well. You know, for a lot of us, when we were younger, there was a lot of boredom. Like, we didn't have, at least speaking for myself, there wasn't an internet, there wasn't uh, the opportunities to be occupied. They just didn't exist all the time. We didn't have it at our fingertips by any means. Yeah, and that sense of restlessness. Wow, yeah, that's an interesting thing. Realizing that perhaps you've been restless your whole life without realizing it. Well, you're not alone if that's the case. That's, I think, a lot of us have, especially in a culture that says, what are you going to do? What are you going to be? What job are you going to have? What do you want to do for the rest of your life? How are you going to like all these things we're asked all the time. No one ever actually just says, you're okay just the way you are. Well, now they do. I think a lot of amazing people and parents, a lot of you are out there listening and watching, maybe with your beautiful, beautiful families with you. Like being able to know that you're okay just as you are, as a child, as well as the inner child as a grown up, that we are enough just being here, doing whatever we're doing, that's okay. That's worthy of being loved. You don't have to do anything or prove anything to anyone. That's a message I wish that I'd heard a lot more of when I was younger. Instead of kind of feeling like I was already on a treadmill of some sorts, but not knowing exactly where I was going or why I was on the treadmill to begin with. Does that make sense? Yeah. Being curious. Yeah, the itchy, it's interesting. So the restlessness, which leads to that itchy quality, right? That sense of this isn't exactly where I want to be or need to be right now, but something else is out there. That being able to embrace that curiosity and be excited by that curiosity. So it's not something bad that's happening to us. It's actually this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to learn, to discover, to explore, to play. Oh, Annie. So B, I think there's a lot of people, this is resonating. J follows it up. It wasn't always a relief to be bored, but I've taught myself to allow it, to appreciate being able to be bored, to turn it into a positive. Yeah, me too. Me too, everybody. Hey, Carlos, welcome. Welcome to the party. Doesn't matter how late you come, you're still welcome. We are talking about what are we talking about, guys? Okay, we're talking, I don't know how the conversation ended up here. We started with color. Now we're somehow talking about boredom versus restlessness, and how creativity can emerge out of boredom, and how restlessness can be used almost as an indicator of where we want to be, and how we can get there. Yeah? Is that one way of summing it up? Oh, Tiffany, that's lovely. Tiffany was just saying she's, oh, lovely. That's, what do she was lucky. She was glad she got to work with us as part of her co-op placement in college in the fine arts program. That's what happens. So we have all these amazing placement students that come to the living room, and wherever you are out there, I'm thinking of you guys as you push towards the end of this term. Hang in there. Tiffany was one of our, I guess it was a few years ago, you were one of our, not like an early day placement student for us for sure. And you brought so much to the studio, namely just an ability. I think it's so important for students to actually allow themselves to be there and not feel like they have to, fix everything of the world or all the things in the community. The first step is simply being there and being able to appreciate and learn from the environment and from the other people that are around you. And you kind of discover that beautiful, I don't know, is it agency? Is it something? When you accept who you are in that space alongside of other people, the potential for growth, for creative growth, as well as just kind of human growth, it's remarkable. Everything becomes possible. And you were really great at that, Tiffany. You were like, and every time you come into the studio again, I always appreciate seeing you. I love it. And you do some really cool things. For folks who don't know, Tiffany does so many cool things. You can go, I think, to Tiffany has an Instagram and a YouTube page even, and you can learn about all the interesting creative things Tiffany does. Let's see. Yeah, we love all our community members. And I miss you so very, very much right now. But thank you for joining in and hanging out with us today. Now, let's see. What have I done here, folks? What a great conversation. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to need to make some art about this conversation. There's colors on a page. Rectangulars! I do not work in these shapes very often. This is surprising. But as we're wrapping up, I did want to talk about another technique that I've used on some of those, the feelings, the day circles, the color of my day circles. So again, just a reminder to everyone, I think today at around 5 p.m., one of our placement students does this, is offering this activity to the community to put your day into a little circle just using color. So it can just fill like a circle, the tracing of a coffee mug with color. colors that represent how you feel, what you've been through that day. You may not understand them as they're coming out. You don't have to name or understand every color and what it means. But again, I find it really, for me personally, it's been a beautiful way to sum things up and make meaning of these ambiguous, slightly disconnected days. It just marks them in a really unique and colorful way. And I end up walking away from that activity feeling really good about what I've done. I can't explain why I'm feeling that way exactly, but I invite all of you to take part in it. I think it was Jay who asked me on one of the activities that I did, one of the circles, and I'll just sort of zoop in here. All right, this circle here, this was watercolors, just playing with the watercolors the same way that I've been doing this whole time on the other sheet. The only other thing that I did differently was that I brought in some pencil crayons afterwards to add some highlights to it. And I don't think I knew that that's what I was doing. Ah, oh, thank you, Jay. But really, it's just pulling colors out of what's already on the page. So in this case, if I wanted to work on, let's see, I'll choose this rectangle. And I think I sometimes as a creator, as an artist, I get a little nervous about things that stand out. And maybe that also says a lot about me as a human being, my own fears and anxieties about standing out. So I like to sneak things in there to see if they'll work. So I always start, what I did on that circle is I start with a color that maybe is in the same tonal range as another color that's in there, maybe a slightly darker shade or lighter shade. And I just started making shapes. Because that one was a circle, I think I started making smaller circles. Because this one's a rectangle, maybe I'll make some rectangles. And that's really all it is. And depending on what the colors around it are, you can either highlight the use of negative space or incorporate other colors within, like to pop out as part of the shapes you're creating or the lines you're creating. I might move on to, let's see what I have here. Maybe I'll try and find an orangey kind of color. Let me pop. I think it's really fun to play, like layer colors on top of colors, especially when they might be a little invisible. You might not know what you're seeing when you first look at it. And because you've given yourself a base of the watercolor underneath, that beautiful color is still there. It's still holding everything for you. Does that make sense? Maybe, maybe not. Again, no perfection allowed. So as always, I'm going to encourage people just to play, see what you discover, see, like maybe, I love learning new techniques, new ways of creating. And again, most of the things I learn often come from mistakes, things I wasn't intending to discover in the first place. I have to sometimes have very interesting conversations with my inner critic to get to that place where I feel comfortable enough creating in this way, but they're always worth it. There we go. Now, folks, I think we're coming to the end of today's little pop-up art hive. I love hanging with you guys. Thank you so much for being here, for making art with us today. I love that folks are out there making their own art. I love that, if you're able to participate in the conversation, that's fantastic. If you're just not up to it and you're listening or watching, that's okay too. Moments like this, times like this, like Bea was saying, yeah, this is what happens. This is what happens at the living room. We come, we make art, we hang out, we chat, we learn things about one another. This is what I love about humaning. And to know that we can still do that even though we can't be in the same space as one another, oh, it lifts my spirits. And I just find it, again, I am so grateful. I am just in love with our creative community. I adore all of you, you brilliant, beautiful, compassionate, intelligent, thoughtful, resilient, funny, all the wonderful things. All you awesome, complex, humaning creatures. I adore you. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Okay? It means so much. We're going to be back here next Wednesday, same time, same place, as far as I know. But if anything changes, we'll let you know, okay? And if you have any other activities you'd like to share, if you have any, if you have art that you've created during this time that you want to post to share with other folks who are participating in this live stream, that would be amazing, of course. If you have suggestions for activities or starting points, conversation starting points that we can come back to in the future next week, let me know that as well. You guys are lovely. You guys are lovely. Share your art. I want to see it. Only, of course, I'm not the boss of you, only if you want to. Okay? Thank you so much. Have a fabulous, fabulous evening. There's still 3 minutes left. What do I do? Just vamp for 3 minutes? I'm not sure. Oh, how do you add art? So that's a great question, Courtney. Thank you. So as far as, like, we've had a few people asking about this actually. So as far as taking pictures of your art and adding it to Facebook, again, there might be other people out there in the community that have simpler ways of describing this. I'm really lucky that I have a smartphone that allows me to snap a picture of whatever I'm working on, take a picture of that, save the photo, and then from my phone, I can go to Facebook or whatever social media platform there is. I can go to Facebook, and then where you'd normally comment, there should also be a little image, a little picture of a kind of camera thingy, a little symbol for a camera. And then you click on the symbol for the camera, and it will allow you to go into your photo album and select with which images you'd like to share from your photo album. Now, for folks who have different devices, I'm not quite sure how it would look there. Sometimes you might need to upload your photo to a Google Drive or, there's many, many things. But if you're lucky enough to have a smartphone that will allow you to click on that camera icon in Facebook, it should allow you to share your image into the comment that you're creating there. I hope that's okay. Does that make sense? Yeah, and if you want to, like, aside from sharing your art, if you want to continue the conversation about boredom and art and restlessness, where restlessness fits into that conversation as well, because without being restless, restlessness helps us discover things. That's what moves us from one place to another, as opposed to just being present and sitting in one place. Please feel free to continue that conversation in the comment section as well. You've really got me thinking about some interesting stuff today, folks. Thank you so, 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 so much. And I look forward to connecting again with everyone next week. Okay? But, one more thing. Yes, remember to check out Gilbert's Color of My Day activity as well. And if it works for you, incorporate it into your day. Okay? Take care, be well, be beautiful to one another. Absolutely. Yeah, you can still keep posting stuff after the live stream is done. Absolutely. Okay, now it's for real. I'm going to say goodbye and let everyone continue the conversation or just enjoy the rest of their days. Take care of yourselves. I miss you. Can't wait to see you again in person soon. But until that time, we'll continue connecting online as much as we can. Okay? Bye, everybody. End live video.